Do you believe you understand the power residing within you? That you truly grasp the primal yet sacred force pulsing through your veins? This isn't a conversation about cheap morality or sexual repression disguised as virtue. This is a revelation about the world elite's best-kept secret, a truth that separated history's great achievers from those who lived as slaves to their impulses. Prepare to discover why masters of success, creative geniuses, and leaders who shaped entire civilizations knew and mastered this ancient art, the transmutation of sexual energy through conscious celibacy. We live in a society that has turned the most sacred of human impulses into a cheap commodity. We are bombarded daily with stimuli that reduce us to animals in heat, programmed to seek instant gratification, to discharge our vital energy at the first opportunity. The entertainment industry, social media, pornography, superficial relationships, everything conspires to keep you in a perpetual state of energetic dispersion, where your creative force is constantly drained through channels, leading nowhere except existential emptiness. But Napoleon Hill, the man who studied over 500 of his era's greatest achievers, discovered something that would forever change our understanding of human success. He realized there's a direct correlation between mastery of sexual energy and the ability to accomplish great feats. This isn't about repression. It's not about denying human nature. It's about understanding that within each sexual impulse resides a creative power so immense that when properly channeled, it can transform an ordinary man into a force of nature. Sexual energy is fire. It's the same force that moves galaxies, makes flowers bloom, and drives all creation. When you allow this energy to dissipate through unconscious practices, whether through compulsive masturbation, empty sex, or purposeless fantasy, you're literally burning the fuel that could power your biggest dreams. It's like having a space rocket and using its fuel to light cigarettes. Conscious celibacy isn't about becoming a monk on a mountain. It's about becoming the architect of your own existence. It's about recognizing that every drop of sexual energy you consciously preserve and redirect transforms into personal magnetism, mental clarity, unwavering willpower, and manifestation, ability that defies the laws of ordinary probability. When Hill analyzed the lives of Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, and other titans of his time, he discovered a disturbing and fascinating pattern. These men, during their periods of greatest productivity and creativity, naturally practiced the conservation of sexual energy, not out of religious dogma, not out of moral repression, but because they intuitively understood that this energy, when preserved, transformed into a creative force capable of moving mountains. Edison, for example, worked for days on end without sleep, immersed in states of creativity so intense they seemed to transcend normal physical limitations. Where did this superhuman energy come from? Tesla, the genius who illuminated the modern world, remained celibate during the most productive periods of his life, channeling all his sexual energy into his revolutionary inventions. Coincidence? Hill discovered it wasn't. Sexual transmutation is pure alchemy. It's the process by which the lead of animal desire transforms into the gold of spiritual and material achievement. But to understand this process, you must first confront your own shadows, your inner demons constantly whispering in your ears, promising immediate pleasure in exchange for your life force. Imagine your sexual energy as a powerful river. When this river flows without direction, it disperses into 1,000 smaller streams, losing its force, its ability to move rocks, to carve landscapes. But when you consciously build the banks of this river, when you direct its flow with purpose and discipline, it becomes an irresistible force, capable of generating enough energy to power entire cities. Modern man has been conditioned to believe that constant sexual satisfaction is a right, a basic need that must be met whenever it arises. This is one of the greatest lies ever told to humanity. The truth is that every time you impulsively give in to sexual desire, whether through masturbation, casual sex, or even obsessive fantasy, you're giving up a part of your personal power. You're feeding the forces that want to keep you, small, weak, and dependent. The world elite has known this secret for millennia, In ancient mystery schools, in sacred temples, in the secret societies that shape the course of history, the conservation and transmutation of sexual energy has always been considered one of the most fundamental practices for the development of personal power. Why do you think this information never reached you clearly and directly? Why has it remained hidden behind symbols, rituals, and coded language? Because a man who masters his sexual energy is an impossible man to control. He cannot be manipulated through desire, cannot be distracted by cheap pleasures, cannot be kept in a state of perpetual need that makes him an obedient consumer. He becomes an autonomous force, a power center radiating natural influence, irresistible magnetism, and an achievement capacity that haunts those who remain slaves to their impulses. Conscious celibacy is not absence, it is presence. It is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is not weakness, it is concentrated strength. When you stop wasting your vital energy on momentary gratifications, something extraordinary happens in your mind and body. You begin to accumulate a reserve of power that manifests in surprising ways. First, your mind becomes sharper, more focused, more capable of sustaining intense concentration for extended periods. Ideas begin to flow with a clarity and originality you've never experienced before. Your ability to solve complex problems multiplies. Your intuition develops to the point where you seem to have access to information beyond the reach of the average rational mind. Second, your body transforms. You develop a vitality, a physical presence that others immediately perceive. Your posture changes. Your gaze becomes more penetrating. Your voice acquires a resonance that commands natural respect. You no longer need to prove your worth through compensatory behaviors. Your power simply emanates from you, like heat radiating from a bonfire. Third, your personal magnetism intensifies to the point of influencing people and situations in ways that defy rational explanation. Opportunities begin to appear as if drawn by an invisible magnetic field. Influential people seek your company for no apparent reason. Your projects receive support and resources from unexpected sources. You become a magnet for success. But to reach this state, you must traverse the valley of shadows, confront the inner demons cultivated over years by a society that profits from your weakness. You need to recognize that every compulsive sexual urge is actually a desperate cry from wounded parts of your psyche, begging for healing, for integration, for true love. Compulsive masturbation, for example, is rarely about genuine pleasure. It's about escaping anxiety, loneliness, existential emptiness, and the pressure of modern life. It's an escape mechanism that works temporarily, but at the same time strengthens exactly what you're trying to escape. It's like using alcohol to cure depression. Each dose seems to alleviate the suffering, but actually deepens the problem that created the need for the dose. When you stop using your sexual energy as an emotional anesthetic, you're forced to confront the real issues that were being masked by the compulsive behavior. This is the moment when true transformation becomes possible. You discover that behind every uncontrolled sexual desire lies a legitimate emotional need that can be met in far more constructive and satisfying ways. The loneliness that drove you to pornography can be transformed into the capacity for genuine intimacy with yourself, which then reflects in deeper and more meaningful relationships. The anxiety that pushed you toward immediate gratification can become creative energy directed toward projects that truly matter. The existential emptiness that was temporarily filled by orgasm can be transformed into a life purpose, a personal mission, a legacy that transcends your individual existence. This process of transmutation doesn't happen overnight. It's a warrior's journey, an initiation that tests every fiber of your character. There will be moments when you feel as if you're being consumed by an inner fire, when every cell in your body seems to cry out for release. These are the crucial moments when you must choose between giving in to the pressure and wasting your life force once more, or consciously traversing the fire, transforming pressure into power. The key is to understand that this energy should not be repressed, but redirected. When you feel sexual energy intensifying, instead of seeking relief through methods that dissipate this energy, you learn to consciously channel it toward your ambitions, your projects, your highest visions. You literally fuel your dreams with the same energy you once wasted on empty fantasies. There are specific techniques for this transmutation. Conscious breathing, for example, allows you to circulate sexual energy throughout your system instead of concentrating it solely in the genitals. Intense physical exercise transforms sexual pressure into muscle strength and physical endurance. Deep meditation allows you to observe impulses without identifying with them, creating space for conscious choices instead of automatic reactions. But the most powerful technique of all is cultivating a vision so compelling, so magnetizing, that it naturally draws all your available energy. When you have a mission that truly matters, when you're building something that goes beyond your personal satisfaction, your sexual energy automatically finds a constructive channel. It becomes fuel for manifestation, energy for creation, power for transformation. Hill observed that great achievers weren't men who denied their sexual needs, but men who transcended them through higher purposes. They discovered that there's a far deeper and more lasting pleasure in seeing their visions materialize in the physical world than in any momentary sexual gratification. They experienced the ecstasy of conscious creation, which makes all other forms of pleasure pale in comparison. The man who practices conscious celibacy isn't depriving himself of pleasure. He's choosing superior pleasures. He trades the momentary satisfaction of orgasm for the lasting satisfaction of accomplishment. He trades the fleeting excitement of sexual fantasy for the constant excitement of seeing his projects come to life. He trades the temporary relief of sexual tension for the permanent energy that comes from living in alignment with his higher purpose. This process of transmutation also awakens capacities that modern science doesn't yet fully understand. Men who practice sexual conservation report developing almost supernatural intuition, the ability to influence people and situations through pure intention, access to insights and solutions that seem to come from a source beyond the ordinary, conscious mind. Tesla, during his periods of celibacy, claimed to receive his inventions already fully formed in his mind, as if he were tuning into a cosmic radio station. Gandhi, who practiced celibacy for decades, developed such a powerful presence that he was able to mobilize an entire nation through pure moral force. These aren't isolated cases. They are examples of what becomes possible when sexual energy is consciously transmuted into spiritual and creative power. But you don't need to be a world-renowned genius to experience the benefits of this practice. Any man who seriously commits to the transmutation of his sexual energy will begin to notice profound changes in all areas of his life. His work capacity multiplies, his mental clarity intensifies, his personal presence becomes magnetic. His accomplishments begin to flow with an ease that surprises even him. The key is understanding that conscious celibacy isn't self-imposed punishment, but an investment in your extraordinary future. Every time you choose to conserve your energy, instead of squandering it, you're making a deposit in a personal power bank account that will yield compound interest for the rest of your life. But beware the pitfalls along this path. The first is spiritual pride, starting to feel superior to those who haven't yet discovered this secret. This attitude is not only counterproductive, but also disperses the very energy you're trying to conserve. True strength comes from humility, from recognizing that you're simply aligning yourself with natural laws that have always existed. The second pitfall is repression disguised as transmutation. Simply suppressing sexual urges through brute willpower creates internal tension that eventually explodes in destructive ways. True transmutation involves acknowledging, honoring, and consciously redirecting energy, not denying or fighting it. The third pitfall is impatience. Our instant gratification culture has programmed us to expect immediate results, but sexual transmutation is a refining process that may take months or years to bear its full fruit. Trust the process. Allow the energy to accumulate gradually. Observe the subtle changes that begin to appear even before you consciously recognize them. As you progress on this journey, you'll begin to realize that your relationship with sex doesn't disappear but completely transforms. You develop a much deeper and more sacred appreciation for this vital force. When you eventually choose to express your sexuality, whether through a deep and meaningful relationship or through conscious tantric practices, the experience becomes exponentially more intense and satisfying. It's like the difference between eating when you're desperately hungry versus savoring a gourmet meal when you're in a state of balance and appreciation. Sexual conservation doesn't eliminate pleasure. It intensifies it, refines it, transforms it from a compulsive need into a conscious celebration. Hill realized that the most successful men of his time weren't those who satisfied all their desires, but those who developed the ability to consciously choose when and how to express their most powerful energies. They became masters of themselves, instead of slaves to their impulses. And this mastery was reflected in every aspect of their lives. Money, for example, began to flow to them in ways that seemed almost magical. Not because they obsessively chased money, but because they developed the inner qualities that naturally attract material abundance. Focus, discipline, clear vision, sustained work capacity, personal magnetism, refined intuition for opportunities. Relationships also transformed dramatically. Instead of seeking partners to fill inner voids or satisfy compulsive needs, they began to attract people who complemented and amplified their strengths. They became magnets for relationships based on mutual admiration, shared growth, and shared purpose. Their physical health also improved significantly. The energy that was previously constantly drained through unconscious sexual practices remained in the system, strengthening the immune system, boosting vitality, creating a reservoir of energy that protected them against stress and illness. But perhaps the most profound transformation occurred in their spiritual lives. Men who practiced sexual transmutation reported mystical experiences, moments of deep connection with something much larger than themselves, insights into the nature of reality that completely transformed their understanding of the purpose of human existence. This is no coincidence. All authentic spiritual traditions recognize that sexual energy and spiritual energy are fundamentally the same force manifesting at different levels. When you learn to consciously raise this energy from the lower centers of the body to the higher centers, you're not just improving your capacity for material achievement, you're accelerating your spiritual evolution in ways that might take decades to achieve through other methods. Conscious celibacy is therefore a simultaneously practical and sacred practice. It's a tool for worldly success and a path to spiritual transcendence. It's a way to optimize your performance in any area you choose to focus on, and a way to awaken latent capabilities that will transform your experience of being alive. But remember, this isn't a practice you adopt for a set period and then abandon. It's a fundamental shift in your relationship with your own vital energy. It's an awakening to the power that has always resided within you, but has been systematically dispersed through unconscious habits and destructive social conditioning. When you truly understand and internalize this knowledge, you realize that you've been liberated from one of the most subtle and pervasive forms of modern slavery. You're no longer at the mercy of impulses that rise and fall like waves in the ocean. You have become the ocean, vast, powerful, capable of generating your own waves according to your conscious will. This freedom is terrifying to those who profit from your dependence. A multi-billion-dollar industry exists specifically to keep you addicted to immediate sexual gratification. Pornography, sexualized entertainment, dating apps that gamify sex, an entire culture that glorifies promiscuity. All of this serves to keep you in a perpetual state of energetic dispersal. When you break free from this matrix of distraction and manipulation, you become a threat to the status quo. You stop being a compliant consumer of products designed to satisfy artificially created needs. You begin generating your own satisfaction, your own purpose, your own goals. You become self-sufficient on a level most people can't even imagine is possible. This self-sufficiency radiates to everyone around you. You become a living example that it's possible to transcend the limitations society presents as inevitable. You inspire other men to question their own habits and conditioning. You become a catalyst for collective transformation. Hill observed that history's great leaders weren't just men who achieved extraordinary personal success. They were men who lifted everyone around them. They became beacons of possibility, demonstrating through their own lives that seemingly insurmountable limits can be transcended through conscious discipline and the application of universal principles. Conscious celibacy is one of these universal principles. It's not a modern invention, a fleeting fad, or an untested theory. It's a practice refined and passed down through millennia by men who empirically discovered its transformative power. It's knowledge preserved between the lines of sacred texts, in the symbols of esoteric traditions, in the coded teachings of mystery schools. Napoleon Hill had the genius to decode this ancestral knowledge and present it in modern language, stripped of religious dogma and cultural superstitions. He showed that sexual transmutation isn't a matter of faith or belief. It's a matter of the practical application of natural laws that work regardless of what you believe about them. Gravity doesn't ask for your opinion before keeping your feet on the ground. The law of sexual transmutation doesn't ask about your beliefs before transforming your conserved energy into personal power. It simply works for anyone who applies its principles with consistency and genuine understanding. But here's the ultimate paradox that will separate you from the many who will hear this message but won't act. Intellectual understanding of this information is completely useless without practical application. You can perfectly understand the mechanisms of sexual transmutation. You can agree with every word said here. You can even explain these concepts to other people. But if you don't viscerally commit to the practice, nothing will change in your life. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is application. The difference between sporadic application and real transformation is unwavering commitment. And the difference between intellectual commitment and visceral commitment is the willingness to sacrifice lesser pleasures for greater achievements, even when every conditioned instinct screams at you to do otherwise. This is the final test, the ultimate initiation, that will determine whether you join the ranks of men who mastered their vital energy or remain among those dominated by it. There's no middle ground. There's no trying out this practice casually. It demands nothing less than a complete revolution in your relationship with your own power. But for those who pass this initiation, who face this transformative fire and emerge purified on the other side, the rewards transcend anything that can be described in words. They discover they were always far more powerful than they ever imagined. They discover they can literally sculpt reality according to their highest visions. They discover that true success doesn't come from acquiring things, but from becoming someone capable of creating anything they genuinely desire. Are you ready for this journey? Are you willing to trade the pleasures that drain your energy for the powers that multiply it? Do you have the courage to discover who you can truly become when you stop wasting who you naturally are? The fire of transmutation is already lit within you. The only question that remains is whether you will have the wisdom to consciously fuel it, or whether you will continue unconsciously using it to burn your own possibilities. The choice is yours, and this choice will determine not only the course of your life, but the legacy you will leave when your energy finally returns to the cosmic source from which it came. Remember, you are not a biological accident programmed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. You are a conscious creative force, temporarily manifested in physical form with unlimited capacity to transform energy into reality. Conscious celibacy is simply one of the master keys that unlocks this capacity. Use it wisely and watch your life transform from an experience of limitation into a celebration of infinite possibility.